Behind the sunny harmonies of that famous psychedelic bus lies a vault of shocking secrets, hidden tragedies, and corporate deception. Friday nights in the 1970s meant watching the Partridge Family sing their hearts out, but even devoted fans missed the dark realities happening just off camera. Before we unlock the truth, subscribe to Comedalgia for more deep dives into classic TV history. Now, buckle up, here's what you missed in the Partridge Family.
Tracy, don't put that drumstick up your nose.
Why not?
You don't know where it's been. Gloria's father phoned to say that she has the mumps.
Number 25. The show had two different theme songs. While most nostalgic viewers can instantly belt out the famous words to the show's signature, upbeat opening tune, a lesser-known fact is that the Partridge Family actually utilized two completely different theme songs over the course of its run. Throughout the entire first season, the broadcast opened with a track titled When We're Singin', which featured music composed by Wes Farrell and lyrics penned by Diane Hildebrand. This original iteration functioned very much like a traditional, old-fashioned sitcom theme song in the vein of contemporary hits, like Gilligan's Island, consciously laying out the underlying premise of the show and introducing the musical family directly through expository opening lines like, "Come on now and meet everybody, and hear us singin'." It was a straightforward, storytelling approach to a title sequence that television audiences of the late 60s and early 70s had naturally come to expect from network programming. Beginning with the premiere of the second season, however, the production permanently switched over to the far more famous and universally recognized anthem, "Come On, Get Happy," which was co-written by Wes Farrell and Danny Jansen. Although the underlying instrumental melody remained quite similar to its predecessor, the lyrical content was completely overhauled to shift the focus away from explaining the family's background and toward delivering a highly optimistic, universal message about spreading love, sunshine, and musical joy. This revised track became the definitive version that permanently burned itself into the collective memory of generations of pop culture fans, anchored by the iconic, infectious opening hook. "Hello world, hear the song that we're singing. Come on, get happy." To match this tonal shift, the show's closing credits also received a thorough makeover, transitioning away from a brassy, jazzy instrumental arrangement and swapping it for a much softer, more mellow instrumental rendition of the new theme. Crucially, both unique iterations prominently featured the lead vocals of breakout teen idol David Cassidy, effectively showcasing his natural musical talents and charismatic vocal screen presence right from the very inception of the series. Number 24. The bus was inspired by a famous Dutch artist. The iconic, multicolored vehicle driven by the television family was far from a random creation, slapped together by an over-enthusiastic hippie with a few cans of leftover spray paint. In reality, the vehicle's striking geometric design was directly inspired by the highly sophisticated, distinctive style of the famous Dutch abstract artist, Piet Mondrian, drawing specific inspiration from his landmark 1921 painting, titled Composition with Large Red Plane, Yellow, Black, Gray, and Blue. Mondrian, whose life spanned from 1872 to 1944, stood as a pioneering leader of the influential De Stijl art movement. His highly regarded work was defined by a strict adherence to the simplest possible combinations of straight horizontal and vertical lines, sharp right angles, and solid blocks of the three primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, interspersed with neutral fields of black, white, and gray. To Mondrian, these paintings were deeply spiritual endeavors, meant to embody the underlying harmonious balance of the cosmos through a sense of extreme formal purity and structural order.
We left.
I guess I should have too.
Oh, Chris.
Me too.
Well, since we're gonna stop it.
Number 23. The real bus costs only $500. The production company behind the series certainly did not break the bank to acquire what would eventually become one of television history's most iconic and culturally significant vehicles. Screen Gems purchased the 1955 Chevrolet 6800 Superior school bus, directly from the Orange County School District in Southern California, for the absolute bargain price of roughly $500. The Superior Coach Company had been manufacturing sturdy, reliable school bus bodies since 1909, constructing them primarily on heavy-duty truck chassis supplied by major automotive manufacturers like Chevrolet, Dodge, Ford, and International Harvester, meaning that the studio managed to secure an incredibly well-built, durable vehicle, despite paying such a modest price tag for it.
What's the matter with you? Why'd you feel guilty?
For not rehearsing. Maybe if we went over that new song a couple more times this afternoon, we could...
Number 22. The bus met a sad end. Following the formal conclusion of the series in March 1974, the beloved vehicle was unfortunately denied a peaceful retirement in a museum or a loving restoration by an affluent pop culture collector. Instead, the production studio immediately had the vehicle repainted completely white, systematically covering up all of that beautiful, custom Mondrian-inspired geometric artwork so it could be cheaply repurposed for another television series titled Apple's Way, which happened to be filming on the exact same studio lot. Once that short-lived program wrapped, the vehicle entered a long, tragic decline into absolute obscurity, eventually ending up parked directly behind a restaurant called Lucy's Tacos on Martin Luther King Boulevard, near the University of Southern California campus, where it sat exposed to the elements and deteriorating for over a decade.
Mean. I know. He was thrown out of the cavalry for being rude to Apaches.
Number 21. Shirley Jones turned down the Brady Bunch. Prior to accepting the role of matriarch Shirley Partridge, accomplished actress Shirley Jones was actually top choice for the part of Carol Brady on the competing sitcom The Brady Bunch. This near miss stands as one of the most fascinating what-if scenarios in television history, especially considering that both programs debuted in the autumn of 1970 as anchors for the network's new Friday night lineup, and both went on to become beloved pop culture classics. However, Jones passed on the opportunity to lead the Brady household without much hesitation. Her rationale for the rejection was refreshingly frank for the era, as she openly stated that she had absolutely no desire to spend the entirety of her on-screen scenes stuck in a suburban kitchen, making sandwiches and acting as a stereotypical domestic housewife. She felt the character of Carol was far too one-dimensional and creatively limiting for an actress of her dramatic caliber.
Clear. You are to leave Laurie and Howard alone, understood? No more spying.
Number 20. David Cassidy and Shirley Jones were actually related. The television series was far from playing simple make-believe when it came to the authentic maternal connection shared between the characters of Keith and Shirley Partridge. In a fascinating twist of real-world casting, breakout star David Cassidy was the actual, real-life stepson of leading lady Shirley Jones, a genuine dynamic that added an invaluable layer of emotional authenticity to their on-screen relationship. Jones was married to David's biological father, Jack Cassidy, a highly successful stage and film actor who had established his own impressively distinguished career in both American musical theater and primetime television. When David first arrived on the studio lot to begin production, he was initially surprised and somewhat uncomfortable to discover that his stepmother had been cast as the family matriarch. Up until that point, his personal relationship with Shirley had been historically rocky and emotionally complicated, as step-family dynamics frequently tend to be when navigating the unique pressures and complexities of Hollywood show business families. However, being forced to work closely alongside one another on the television set 5 days a week for 4 consecutive years ultimately brought the two performers significantly closer together. The grueling, long hours on stage, the shared psychological experience of sudden international fame, and the unique production challenges they faced as a creative unit helped deeply strengthen their real-life family bond. Jones later reflected in interviews that she was absolutely devastated when the network finally canceled the series, explaining that her grief stemmed not just from the conclusion of a highly successful, top-rated show, but because it meant the abrupt end of that precious daily time spent together with David and the rest of the close-knit cast. She warmly described the ensemble as truly becoming a genuine, permanent family unit, one that endured long after the studio cameras stopped rolling.
Great, but don't expect Dinah Shore.
Number 19. The first Chris Partridge was replaced due to behavior issues. During the initial season of the series, the role of the youngest Partridge son, Chris, was originally portrayed by child actor Jeremy Gelbwaks. However, when loyal viewers eagerly tuned in for the premiere of the second season, they were greeted by a jarring visual discrepancy, as Chris Partridge suddenly sported bright blonde hair instead of his familiar dark brown locks. Gelbwaks had been abruptly replaced by a young actor named Brian Forster, who would comfortably inhabit the role for the remaining 3 seasons of the show's network run. At the time, the official public relations narrative released by the studio claimed that the Gelbwaks family had simply relocated out of the area due to a parental job transfer, a polite piece of classic Hollywood fiction designed to preserve everyone's professional reputation. The actual truth behind the sudden casting switch, as later detailed by the show's cast and crew, was far less pleasant than the official press release suggested. Gelbwaks reportedly exhibited severe behavioral issues on the active television set and struggled significantly to get along with virtually anyone on the production, ranging from the adult actors and the technical crew members to his immediate on-screen sibling, Danny Bonaduce. Bonaduce later candidly admitted during a retrospective episode of VH1's Behind the Music that the backstage animosity was entirely mutual, noting he wasn't above surreptitiously kicking Jeremy right before the director called action on a shared scene. The daily working environment had rapidly become toxic and entirely untenable for a children's program, ultimately forcing the producers to step in and recast the part.
No better, I'd say you were jealous. No, I've outgrown the need to have women falling at my feet.
Number 18. Danny Bonaduce had dyslexia. When the series first commenced production, a young Danny Bonaduce struggled enormously with memorizing his dialogue, a persistent issue that deeply perplexed the show's creative team. During one particularly grueling shoot, the child actor required a remarkable 36 takes just to successfully complete a relatively simple, straightforward scene. Script read-throughs quickly became an absolute nightmare for the young performer, who would constantly stumble over basic words, lose his place on the page, and freeze up, causing initial waves of frustration and confusion among the assembled cast and crew. Eventually, someone on the production team discovered that Danny was dealing with dyslexia, a learning disorder that made traditional reading and script learning methods incredibly difficult for a child his age. This occurred during the early 1970s, an era when dyslexia was not nearly as well understood, diagnosed, or accommodated by educators and television studios as it is today. However, once the production staff adjusted their approach and implemented alternative learning techniques, working with Danny verbally by reading the lines aloud to him, rather than forcing him to rely solely on the printed page, they uncovered an extraordinary silver lining. The young actor possessed a flawless photographic memory.
I don't know, Danny. It doesn't sound too promising.
Why not?
Somehow, I just can't take any.
Number 17. Shirley Jones once forgot Danny wasn't really her son. Though Danny Bonaduce was deeply well liked by the entire cast and crew, he was also notorious for acting up and causing playful chaos on the television set. He was, after all, still just a young child, trying to navigate the overwhelming pressures of sudden international fame while trapped on a grueling production schedule. One afternoon, after a series of particularly disruptive antics, the naturally maternal Shirley Jones became so thoroughly exasperated with his behavior that she completely forgot her surroundings, snapped into protective parent mode, and loudly ordered the young actor to go upstairs to his bedroom. Of course, the physical studio set did not actually possess a functioning second floor, and despite their close real-life bond, she was not actually his biological mother. The entire cast and crew broke out into roaring laughter over Jones's momentary, hilarious confusion between real-world reality and the fictional television universe they inhabited every day, which instantly diffused the on-set tension and became one of the most fondly remembered backstage anecdotes in the history of the show.
Many colleges. How do you make up your mind where to go?
Depends on what you want.
Right. If you want to catch a rich guy.
Number 16. Susan Dey had a secret crush on David Cassidy. Behind the scenes of the hit series, actress Susan Dey harbored deep, unrequited romantic feelings for her on-screen brother, David Cassidy. Because there was only a precise 2-year age difference between the young performers, with Susan born in December 1952, and David in April 1950, they were natural peers and quickly formed a close platonic friendship when production initially commenced. For Susan, however, those emotional bonds ran infinitely deeper than mere workplace camaraderie. She fell completely head over heels for her handsome co-star, who was rapidly transforming into one of the biggest and most intensely pursued teen idols in American history. David, thoroughly comfortable in his established role as a protective big brother, both on and off the camera, viewed Susan strictly as a sisterly figure, and never once reciprocated her romantic feelings during the show's entire 4-year network run. In what must have been an absolute emotional torture for the young actress, David would routinely regale Susan with detailed, casual accounts of his wild romantic adventures with the endless waves of fans and groupies who pursued him relentlessly on tour. He was completely oblivious to the fact that each story deeply wounded her, and that every enthusiastic tale of another girl broke her heart a little more. Susan chosen to suffer in silence, never explicitly confessing her true feelings to him throughout 4 full seasons of friendly, backstage chatter regarding other women.
Don't tell me America's sex symbol can't get a date.
It's no use. You can't make me feel any more miserable.
Number 15. Susan Dey struggled with an eating disorder. The intense pressure of sudden international fame quickly took a severe emotional and physical toll on the young Susan Dey. Finding herself thrust into the global spotlight as an adolescent television icon, she developed deep-seated insecurities regarding her physical appearance and began a highly restrictive diet that ultimately triggered a dramatic, dangerous drop in weight. For a long time, Susan remained in denial about the severity of her condition, only realizing how dangerous the problem had truly become when her on-screen brother, Danny Bonaduce, pulled her aside at the studio pool and bluntly told her that she looked terribly thin and emaciated. The overwhelming stress of maintaining the image of a perfect teenage superstar, combined with her painful, unrequited feelings for David Cassidy, created a profoundly difficult and isolating environment for the young actress as she battled severe body image issues behind the scenes of America's favorite musical sitcom.
Come on, Mom. That's the oldest excuse in the world.
Did you make him walk home?
Number 14. Only 2 cast members actually sang. While the series successfully convinced millions of fans that the entire Partridge clan was a powerhouse of musical prodigies singing in flawless harmony, the reality behind those chart-topping studio recordings was entirely different. In truth, only David Cassidy and Shirley Jones actually contributed their real voices to the tracks released on the official Partridge Family albums and singles. The rest of the young cast, Susan Dey, Danny Bonaduce, Suzanne Croft, and both Jeremy Gelbwaks and Brian Forster were strictly actors who lip-synced to pre-recorded tracks whenever their characters were shown performing on screen. The rich, tight vocal harmonies that backed up David Cassidy's soaring lead vocals were actually engineered by a group of elite, seasoned studio vocalists known as the Ron Hicklin Singers. This professional ensemble consisted of brothers John and Tom Baller, Ron Hicklin himself, and veteran singer Jackie Ward. Ward was no stranger to musical success, having secured her own top 20 hit record back in 1963 under the stage name Robin Ward with her popular single Wonderful Summer. These expert vocalists brought years of meticulous training and studio experience to the microphone, blending their voices effortlessly to manufacture the iconic, polished pop sound that defined the family's fictional discography.
Keith, you're no cat burglar.
Did you tell her?
Tell who what?
What's all this noise?
Number 13. David Cassidy almost didn't get to sing. When the musical series was first conceived by network executives, the original production plan dictated that young David Cassidy would simply lip-sync along to pre-recorded studio tracks alongside the rest of his on-screen siblings. However, possessing a genuine passion for music and immense raw talent, David successfully convinced the show's powerhouse music producer, Wes Farrell, that he could legitimately sing and deserved an authentic chance to perform the lead vocals himself. Intrigued by the young actor's confidence, Farrell brought him into the recording studio for a trial session and was immediately blown away. He agreed on the spot to let David record the definitive vocal tracks for all future Partridge Family releases. This audaciously pushed decision proved to be an absolute masterstroke for the entire franchise. David's distinct, soulful voice rapidly became the show's single most lucrative and marketable asset, elevating the fictional band's music into a legitimate, multi-platinum real-world phenomenon. The massive success of these recordings ultimately served as a spectacular launching pad for David's historic solo career, transforming him almost overnight into an international musical icon and the defining teen idol of the entire decade.
Trying to convert anybody. They just asked us to sing at a rally.
Yeah, well, you sing at that rally and you'll regret it.
What do you mean?
Number 12. They beat the Beatles on the charts. The Partridge Family's breakout anthem, I Think I Love You, achieved an absolutely monumental milestone in American pop culture history when it soared straight to the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in late 1970, comfortably holding the peak position for 3 consecutive weeks. However, the truly astonishing aspect of this chart-topping run is that the television track actually managed to outsell the Beatles' final cultural single, Let It Be, and went down in history as a greater commercial phenomenon for the year. It remains a staggering historical detail to process a completely fictional, manufactured television family managed to outperform the most critically acclaimed and commercially influential rock band in history, the very group that had completely dominated global popular music for the entirety of the 1960s. For a newly debuted multimedia project to achieve such a massive commercial feat was nothing short of extraordinary. I Think I Love You ultimately established itself as the single best-selling record of 1970, moving over 5 million physical copies worldwide and earning an official RIAA certification. Masterfully written by songwriter Tony Romeo, the composition flawlessly captured the bubbly, innocent, and anxious emotions associated with discovering adolescent love. Even the most cynical, jaded music critics of the era were forced to concede that it was an incredibly well-crafted, meticulously arranged piece of pure pop music. The song's brilliant introductory hook, The energetic ba-ba, ba-ba-ba vocal harmony proved mathematically impossible for listeners to push out of their minds once they had heard it on the radio.
Danny's no criminal, so we'll set up a few things around the house for him to steal. When he overcomes the temptation, he'll...
Number 11. David Cassidy made shockingly little money. Despite the show's staggering success, sold-out arena concerts, and an absolute avalanche of commercial merchandise bearing his face, David Cassidy was initially earning a mere $600 per week from the production. To put that into perspective, at the absolute peak of the program's global popularity in the early 1970s, when he was headlining massive stadium tours that drew tens of thousands of screaming fans, when his image dominated lunchboxes, bedroom posters, teen magazines, and bubblegum cards, and when "I Think I Love You" was actively reigning as the best-selling single in America. The young star was taking home a weekly paycheck that was less than what many standard middle-class families were bringing home at the time. The television production studio, Screen Gems, and the associated record label aggressively retained nearly all of the astronomical profits generated by both the broadcast and the musical catalog. David's original managers had signed him to what can only be described as a highly predatory and exploitative contract that explicitly denied him a fair share of merchandising revenue or record sales. His initial agreement completely lacked provisions for back-end royalties, and he possessed absolutely no legal say over how his own name and likeness were utilized commercially by corporate entities. Millions of enthusiastic fans across the globe were even paying out-of-pocket fees to join his official international fan club, yet David wasn't receiving a single penny of those cumulative membership revenues either.
Why not?
Because Snake sleeps with his eyes open, and it makes me nervous when someone snores and stares at me.
Number 10. The Partridge House was on famous Blondie Street. The exterior scenes of the family's iconic suburban home were filmed at the Warner Brothers Ranch in Burbank, California, on a specialized backlot street officially designated as Blondie Street. This unique moniker traced its origins back to the early 1940s, when the studio used the location to film the popular Blondie and Dagwood Bumstead movie serials. The street formed a central hub of a massive 40-acre studio ranch that had been actively used since the mid-20th century, serving as the visual backdrop for countless classic television series and feature films over the decades. Blondie Street was an incredibly dense neighborhood of famous television architecture. If you were a regular television viewer during the 1960s and 1970s, you likely looked at these exact same house facades across multiple different programs without ever realizing they were located on the same studio lot. The bewitched house stood proud on the street, situated right near the home of Samantha Stevens's famously nosy neighbor, Gladys Kravitz. Meanwhile, the residence from I Dream of Jeannie was positioned directly next door to the Partridge household. In fact, set decorators had to physically remove a 3-foot section of Jeannie's fictional front lawn just to widen the Partridge family driveway enough to safely park their massive, multicolored tour bus. The neighborhood also housed the classic homes from Dennis the Menace and Gidget, and years later, it would even serve as the exterior for the Griswold family home in the holiday classic National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
You're both under arrest. The police made me a special deputy.
Number 9. The garage scenes were real. While the interior home scenes were filmed on a separate soundstage, the garage where the family famously practiced their music was actually a fully functional, practical structure attached directly to the exterior house facade on Blondie Street. Because both the exterior neighborhood sets and the production sound stages were located on the exact same Warner Brothers Ranch lot in Burbank, the show enjoyed a seamless logistical setup that allowed directors to feature far more genuine outdoor shots, driveway scenes, and open-air transitions than most standard sitcoms of the era could ever manage. This layout gave the series a massive creative advantage over other contemporary fantasy sitcoms like Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. Those productions were faced with a major geographical hurdle, as their primary indoor sound stages were situated 20 to 30 minutes away on the main studio lot, entirely separate from the outdoor ranch. To avoid constantly moving cast and crew back and forth for simple transitions, those shows were forced to construct elaborate, duplicate false house fronts right inside their indoor sound stages just to shoot basic scenes where characters walked out the front door. A tedious production shortcut that the music-making Partridge clan never had to worry about.
If you were going to test me, at least you could have been more clever.
Number 8. The house was eventually demolished. The famous yellow house with its picturesque white picket fence survived as an enduring piece of Hollywood real estate for decades after the Partridge family wrapped production. Instead of being dismantled when the show went off the air, the durable facade remained a staple of the Warner Brothers Ranch backlot, quietly transitioning into various other film and television projects. Horror fans recognized the structure as a central setting in the 1987 cult classic, The Monster Squad, and its robust build was put to the ultimate test when special effects teams realistically blew up portions of the property for a high-octane action sequence in the blockbuster film Lethal Weapon. In its final major television era, the legendary property found a brand new generation of viewers when it was designated as Meemaw's house on the hit CBS sitcom Young Sheldon. The structure's fictional journey came to a dramatic conclusion during the show's storyline, where a devastating, scripted tornado completely demolished Meemaw's beloved home.
Can I help it if I'm a music lover? I just wanted to tell Tracy, don't put that drumstick up.
Number 7. The pilot episode was different. The very first episode of the Partridge Family stands out as a unique anomaly in the series for several distinct reasons, serving as a fascinating time capsule from before the show fully solidified its iconic brand. Most notably, it is the only episode in the entire 4-season run that does not feature any version of the show's eventual, world-famous theme songs. Instead of opening with the bubbly, universally recognized harmonies of When We're Singin', the Season 1 theme or its later incarnation, Come On, Get Happy, the pilot utilized a completely different track titled Together Havin' a Ball, written and performed by musicians Shorty Rogers and Kelly Gordon. Furthermore, this premiere episode entirely lacks the whimsical, animated main title sequence, complete with the opening graphic of a mother partridge, followed by her colorful alignment of little chicks that would soon become a comforting staple for millions of households every Friday night. In its place, the show relied on a much more straightforward, live-action opening. The pilot simply introduced viewers to the family by showing them performing together on stage as if they were playing a live concert set, giving the episode a distinctly raw, unpolished energy compared to the heavily stylized, graphic identity that defined the series from the very next week onward.
I understand you got a crush on me.
Well, it's not that I...
Actually, you see...
Number 6. There was an unaired pilot. Before the Partridge Family ever hit the airwaves, a completely different version of the show was captured on film. In December 1969, the cast and crew shot a fascinating, unaired pilot that featured an entirely alternative dynamic for the family, contrasting sharply with the squeaky clean, wholesome premise that eventually defined the series. In this original concept, the family matriarch wasn't even named Shirley. She was called Connie Partridge. Even more shocking for fans of the broadcast version, Connie wasn't navigating the challenges of single motherhood entirely alone. The script gave her a steady boyfriend. In a spectacular twist of show business irony, this boyfriend was portrayed by none other than Jack Cassidy, the real-life husband of Shirley Jones and the biological father of David Cassidy.
Keith's brushing his teeth with it.
Still mad at him, huh?
This time, I think it's
Number 5. Jack Cassidy became jealous of the show's success. The spectacular rise of the Partridge Family cast a long, painful shadow over the family's real-world patriarch, Jack Cassidy. Long before David Cassidy became a global teen idol, or Shirley Jones became America's favorite television mother, Jack had been the undisputed star of the family, commanding the spotlight as a dashing, critically acclaimed leading man in Broadway musicals and prime-time television guest spots. Watching his wife and son suddenly skyrocket to an unprecedented level of international fame, while his own career began to plateau, shattered his ego and created an incredibly tense, deeply envious dynamic within the household. Compounding this professional jealousy were severe personal battles. Jack struggled with worsening alcoholism and what is now widely understood to have been bipolar disorder, then referred to as manic depression, conditions that went largely unmanaged during an era when mental illness carried a heavy stigma. He reportedly experienced dramatic mood swings, swinging from intense charisma to deep, dark depressions, and he frequently took his frustrations out on his family. The immense psychological weight of being completely overshadowed by his own family, combined with his inner demons, eventually pushed his marriage past the breaking point. His relationship with Shirley Jones completely deteriorated under the strain, leading to their formal divorce in 1975.
You sure know how to make a guy feel welcome.
Sorry, Reuben, I was expecting somebody else.
Number 4. A tragedy at a David Cassidy concert changed everything. On May 26, 1974, David Cassidy took the stage at London's White City Stadium to perform for 35,000 screaming fans. By this point in his career, the sheer scale of Cassidy mania had reached truly terrifying proportions. The hysteria wasn't just deafening, it was physically dangerous. Dense crowds of young girls would hyperventilate, weep uncontrollably, and press forward in chaotic, desperate waves just to get inches closer to their idol. During this specific London show, that collective emotional energy manifested as a literal wall of physical pressure. As the crowd surged toward the stage, a massive crowd crush trapped hundreds of fans. 800 people were injured in the terrifying squeeze, completely helpless against the suffocating momentum of the packed stadium. Tragically, 14-year-old Bernadette Whelan was caught directly in the epicenter of the surge. Overwhelmed by the crowd, she was knocked down and severely trampled. Bernadette never regained consciousness and passed away in a hospital 4 days later, on May 30, 1974, from her traumatic injuries. The heartbreaking news shattered David Cassidy, leaving an emotional scar that he carried for the rest of his life. He immediately penned a deeply personal letter of condolence to the Whelan family, struggling behind closed doors to process the horrifying reality that his music had become the catalyst for a child's death. In his raw, immediate statements to the press, his immense guilt and confusion were painfully evident. My first reaction was that I was totally brought down. I feel responsible, and yet I don't feel responsible. This devastating incident became the definitive turning point of David's life, permanently fracturing his relationship with fame and show business. Recognizing that the corporate machine would continue to exploit his image, regardless of the human cost, he made the executive decision to completely stop touring in massive arena venues, flatly refusing to ever risk another tragedy.
Trouble moving my mouth. Don't worry about it. It's perfectly normal.
Number 3. The show was based on a real family band. The concept for the Partridge Family was directly inspired by the Cowsills, a real-life musical phenomenon of the late 1960s. Composed of 6 brothers, a sister, and their mother, this remarkably talented family outfit secured a string of massive pop hits, most notably their 1967 smash, The Rain, The Park, and Other Things, frequently remembered as The Flower Girl, and their soaring multi-platinum version of the title track from the musical Hair. When television producers initially began developing a sitcom centered around a touring musical family, they spent considerable time evaluating the possibility of casting the actual Cowsills family to play themselves on screen. However, network executives ultimately backed away from the idea due to several logistical hurdles. Primarily, by 1970, the real Cowsill children were already aging out of the youthful, adolescent demographics the writers wanted to explore on prime-time television. Furthermore, despite their phenomenal musical abilities, the family members lacked formal training as comedic actors capable of handling the relentless, fast-paced dialogue demands of a weekly studio sitcom.
Can't wait to see his face.
You want me, Mom?
Honey, look what Reuben brought you.
Number 2. There was an animated spin-off. Attempting to desperately keep the commercial magic alive after the live-action series officially wrapped production, television producers took a radically bizarre creative pivot. In the autumn of 1974, they partnered with animation powerhouse Hanna-Barbera to create a Saturday morning animated spin-off titled Partridge Family, 2200 AD, later repackaged in syndication as The Partridge Family in Outer Space. The cartoon project took the core premise of the original series and blasted it into a futuristic setting, heavily reminiscent of the Jetsons. Instead of driving through the American suburbs in a multicolored Mondrian-style bus, the animated Partridge Clan navigated a high-tech galaxy in a flying, multi-passenger spaceship. Between intergalactic bookings, the family encountered alien creatures, robot sidekicks, and sci-fi misadventures, all while trying to maintain their status as the universe's premier pop music act.
Mom, for the first time in my life, I don't know what to say.
Just say what's in your heart.
Number 1. The cast reunited several times over the years. Despite navigating rocky personal relationships and the natural passage of time, the cast of the Partridge Family managed to cross paths and reunite on multiple high-profile occasions over the decades. Their very first major televised gathering occurred in November 1977, when they joined forces with the cast of My Three Sons for a star-studded, nostalgic ABC Thanksgiving special. As 1970s nostalgia began to peak in the 1990s, the cast assembled again for a highly celebrated appearance on the Arsenio Hall show, followed by an emotional 1995 sit-down on Danny Bonaduce's daytime talk show, Danny. While most of the main cast members proudly participated in these retrospective events, the 2 biggest stars of the franchise were notably absent from the studio couch. Susan Dey, fiercely protective of her privacy, opted to join the 1995 reunion via a phone call rather than appearing in person. while David Cassidy was physically unable to attend due to a grueling recording schedule for a new studio album. Still, these collective moments in the spotlight proved that despite the immense personal and physical challenges of their early overnight fame, the cast maintained a deep, unspoken bond rooted in their unique, shared pop culture experience. The Partridge Family ultimately delivered 96 episodes across 4 vibrant seasons, leaving behind a timeless catalog of bubblegum pop and wholesome family adventures that continue to resonate with audiences decades later. From the iconic Mondrian-inspired tour bus to the hidden but backstage heartbreaks and exploitative contracts, these behind-the-scenes realities remind us that there was always a far more complex human story unfolding just beneath the show's sunny, idealized surface. Thank you for taking this nostalgic trip down memory lane. If you enjoyed exploring the hidden history, triumphs, and struggles of classic television's favorite musical family, feel free to share what your favorite Partridge Family song or memory is. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please like and subscribe for more nostalgic looks at classic television. Thanks for watching.